Here we go. From the New York Post. Joy Behar rips heterosexual men for supporting tackle football. I just, what?
I got to hear it from Joy's mouth.
So first of all, hold on there a minute. Is she's saying that gay dudes don't like football? Like, I don't think that's true. I don't think your preference has anything to do with whether you like a sport or don't.
Yeah, no, I know plenty of gay guys who love football, so that's...
But you know what this is all about? This story is because a dude got tackled and his heart stopped.
Right.
And so what they're trying to blame is that he got tackled.
Wait, correction, the dude tackled the other guy.
Right.
Made the tackle.
It wasn't even him, right.
Correct.
Hot.
Yeah.
Good job,
Damar.
Damar.
He tackles a guy. And then what are they calling it? Commotio cordis?
Yeah, commotio cordis.
Commotio cordis. So what my understanding of that was, because we talked about it the other day, is that when a young adult gets hit by a baseball or a puck, they can...
like 90.
Yeah. It hits their heart at the right moment and can cause a disruption in their heart rhythm. That is not the same as someone who's 24 just having their heart stop because they fell on the ground.
Right, and they have
like a routine tackle too.
I think it was the Dr. Victory. What's her first name is? She goes on Dr. Drew a lot. Dr. Victory, I think that's her last name. But she was saying, I mean, that's why they're padded up. So they've never seen. I think she might have said they've never seen commotio cordis in football. I don't know. Have you guys ever heard? I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But
I mean, they say it's a 1 in 200 million.
If you remember,
chest plates.
Sorry to cut you off. If you remember, Will Smith did the whole movie, and the whole thing was CTE. The whole thing was brain. Like you're familiar with what I'm talking about? Or
what
no?
movie?
So Will Smith did. I don't remember what it was called, but Will Smith they produced the whole movie, and the NFL hated it because it was like showing the reality of CTE and like NFL players banging their heads around. And now all of a sudden their hearts are exploding. Forget CTE. Forget your brain. It's a total different part. So like, why can't we talk about how the NFL was discussing CTE every day, every month, every year? Brain. Now we're seeing athletes just drop dead. It's not their brain. That's their heart. So it's a totally different thing.
Let me read this.
They were saying there's 29 deaths per year in athletics, and now there's like 1,600 or some crazy number.
1,101. Let me read this from New York Post. The View co-host Joy Behar hit conservatives and heterosexual men on Wednesday. Are you kidding? 45% of Americans think that tackle football is appropriate. Heterosexual men voted the most support for kids doing football, and conservatives were more likely to support youth tackle football. Just saying. Yo, are we really? We're going for Sarcastable. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
South Park. They were like
basketball, Sarcastable. Yeah.
It was like they played with balloons.
Yeah.
And they had to wear bras.
Yes.
And they ran around. This is what we're gonna
coming
get.
soon. And
Coming soon, man.
I wait until she finds out about
That's
boxing.
crazy.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see her reaction. Like MMA,
Everything is polarizing. I remember when they like 6 months ago, they were like, if you work out, you're more conservative. I was like, even if that
If
is
you're not
true,
vaccinated,
why are we
you're more likely to get into a car accident.
Like, why? Yeah, that was crazy, man. That was crazy.
Imagine believing this stuff. Like, okay, hold on. Let me just tell you. It is probably true that if you're unvaccinated, you're more likely to get in a car accident. Why? Because people who live in lockdown cities are more likely to get vaccinated because of vaccine mandates, less likely to drive. People who live in the countryside, not around people, less likely to get vaccinated, more likely to drive. So they're doing this spurious correlation that is parody worthy, but there are people who genuinely believe that and fear like, oh no, I might get in a car accident unless I get a booster shot.
I have a total opposite, and hopefully we don't get shut down for this. It's not misinformation. Knowing Malone very personally, he told me over a year ago, he said, hey, being the somewhat contributing towards mRNA, he's like, there's going to be, this was over a year ago. He said there's going to be athletes, there's going to be car accidents, there's going to be all these things from people who are reacting poorly to a vaccine. And I couldn't believe him. I was like, I don't believe. So I feel that this article that you're referring to is the opposite. It's to deter you from maybe more maybe that's real. Maybe more accidents. It's like
which article? The car accident one?
The one that you're discussing, that unvaccinated more car accident, blah blah blah, to kind of deter you from the true fact that potentially could be real, if assuming Malone is right or wrong, that if he was saying that you have a heart attack at the wheel. He was saying that you have some sort of thing that is connected to this, that it's like now you can't drive. Now
maybe, but here's the deal. We have one. So I think it was Corey. What's his first name? Pierre Corey.
I know Pierre. Yeah, the Rogan's doctor, right? Is that his?
He said he's the one. He was on Tucker the other night, and he said 1,101 deaths from like heart related things of athletes. I think that was
McCullough.
That was McCullough.
McCullough was on last
he's
night.
the heart doctor.
Oh, okay. Sorry. That was McCullough.
He's a cardiologist.
So you got to put that in perspective. If they gave out 400 million vaccines and we saw 1,000 people die, that's a very, 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 very small percentage.
Of course.
But
Is
it's
that
a
the reality?
large-
Is this what we know it to be?
But
true?
those are the numbers being documented. How many
Right,
of those
right.
numbers are not being
No, for sure.
documented? And
For sure.
for the United States to still use the VAERS system,
Right.
an outdated system that is extremely complicated
Takes
and
30 minutes.
convoluted
Takes
to
30
even
minutes.
fill out, it absolutely makes no sense at all. So obviously, we should be doing more reporting. We should actually know the data. We should actually see what's going on here. We should see the results
Right.
of this larger medical intervention. We're not seeing any of that. We have a
we're
lot
not-
of nonsensical hyperbolic dribble by Joy Behar talking about masculinity being a big problem here. Obviously, a hot take from the corporate media: testosterone bad. Gee whiz, who would
I
have
think
thought
just
that?
Joy and Andrew Tate just got to fuck it out right now. Sorry, can I curse on this? I'm sorry.
No,
You're not supposed to,
After 15
frankly, but you've been
seconds.
going off.
They just. I'm sorry. You should have told me.
This is a
Sorry.
family-friendly show.
They only
We got kids
demonetize in
watching
the
here.
first 15 seconds. If you swear in the first 15 seconds, I think they demonetize the
It's
video.
a
right away.
scale, actually.
I think Joy.
No, but for the national conversation to be about Joy Behar talking about the problems of masculinity and not what's really going on here, and not people asking questions, why are people dropping, dropping dead here suddenly? That to me is the biggest travesty of injustice here. Because when you're on a national television, you have a duty to talk about all the important stuff. You're
Right.
just literally reading from the same script, reading from the same agenda. Men bad, balls bad, testosterone bad. I mean, come on.
Do you think she believes this,
It's getting
or do you think
pathetic.
it's an agenda? You
It's
think-
getting
No, she
tiresome.
believes it.
It's
Believes
obvious.
it.
I worked in the same building as these people. I used to take the elevator down there, and I'd see like Whoopi Goldberg.
Right.
When I worked for
And they
Fusion.
believe the things they're
They believe
spouting.
all of this, dude. They are not smart people. They don't read.
Right.
They sit down and they're like, "What's the news?" And then someone's like, if a football player got tackled and died. Whoa! Can you? And they sit down and they do a show kind of like this, but without actually pulling up source material. So they'll go, "I heard that Donald Trump said he liked white supremacists,"
And they really believe it.
Wow. Yeah, they all believe it.
Tim, they do read, but it's the teleprompter,
Right.
All right, and
Right.
it's like, what lines? What do we have to say today? Okay, got it.
This
I
show
wanna-
brought to you by Pfizer.
I want to push back on what you're saying, Luke, that people aren't speaking up about it enough, because I think they are now, and especially Dr. Drew Pinsky.
On the corporate media.
No, well, YouTube, which is corporate, Google owns, but Dr. Kelly Victory, Dr. Byram Bridle, Dr. Drew, on Dr. Drew's YouTube channel, they are talking about incredible things that would have got them banned a year ago. But you're right, a
They
lot of
are
media
getting
isn't
banned, and they're
pushing
getting
it.
downranked, and not even knowing that they're getting downranked.
I know he's got 8,000 views on that video. Are you kidding me? It was out. He should be getting hundreds of thousands of views on his
The
videos.
algorithm
Dr. Drew.
specifically makes sure that it's only the approved channels, only the channels that are financed by Pfizer that gets to control the conversation here. So when you look up those specific terms on YouTube, you only get shown the corporate media, which is financed by Pfizer. Any independent voice even daring to raise questions here, any scientist, any independent thinker even addressing these issues, automatically, even if they're for the narrative, downranked in the algorithm, not shown to anyone. And this is how they control the conversation in this country, and how they're able to get away with all this nonsense, because people can't even find out what's really going on here. They have such a control of this psychological operation that people can't even find out what's going on here, which is crazy.
To be fair, to counter, I just checked. We are the top live stream on YouTube right now.
Good.
But is YouTube putting us in the trending subject? Is
Yes.
YouTube highlighting that?
I don't know.
No.
I hope so. They
Exactly.
should. Trend us, dudes. This is awesome.
We should. I mean, the amount of views we get on the show every night, it should reach trending, but it
Right.
never does.
No, it's paid for sure.
But as independent media, we have to literally, it's like pulling teeth in order to kind of retain our audience, in order to keep our audience. It's extremely difficult, as YouTube has been going out of their way and doing one underhanded thing after another underhanded thing in order to stifle your ability to reach people. And it's not like, the corporate media that has an unfair advantage. And whenever you search for anything, it's always them that you get to see. You don't get to see the real voices.
Who is they, though?
The corporate media.
I am they.
The establishment media, CNN, MSNBC, CBS News, NBC News, the same news networks that, of
corporate
course,
press.
are controlled and have top agents at the CIA at the helm and in charge of those news organizations that are essentially are not news organizations. They're propaganda outlets that do the bidding of the special interest class. That's exactly what they are. They're not in the business of news. They're in the business of propaganda.
Yeah, I think to add some nuance to what you're saying, that YouTube is probably responsible. They're just following orders, but you're still responsible for pulling the trigger. Soldier. But I think that the government, we're going to find out, like what they did with Twitter, that they're sending alphabet.
Of course,
They've got
it
it on.
is.
They got their thumb
It's
on
not
everything.
just one. it's all.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
On Drew's video, it says, "Get the latest information from the CDC." Like there's a COVID warning on it.
No, I've seen
That's not Google's. I mean, maybe Alphabet's like, let's do. I think it's
If you think
probably
that- if
the
you-
guy telling me to get a vaccine, Joe Biden. Like what? He's not even a doctor. Sorry to cut you off.
No. I'm slowly
He's not
cutting
even
you
a
off.
doctor.
But if you think the Twitter files are bad, imagine what the alphabet files are going to be like. I mean, if they ever come out, which they probably won't, but that's a whole nother layer of significant finagling of our discourse.
I want to know what Joe Biden was talking about in the Virgin Islands.
Oh yeah, he went down there, and then the next day the prosecutor got fired.
Well, sort of.
Tell me the story.
On December 27th, AG in Virgin Islands files a lawsuit against J.P. Morgan for facilitating Epstein's trafficking. That same day, Joe Biden then flies to the Virgin Islands, and then it was announced the next week the Attorney General got fired.
Which makes me
3 days after filing the lawsuit.
And here's the best part. The article about Biden flying to the Virgin Islands was like, he goes there for the holidays. He has not been there for years, and he decided to just go now. And it's like, dude,
I saw that.
he's not been there.
I didn't know this story. I heard you had Republicans that were like, I can't believe he's doing the same things that they accused Trump for. I'm like, wow, like I've never been what's really going on, guys. This is a distraction. I try not to be that guy, but what you're saying
He
makes
had
total
not
sense.
gone to the Virgin Islands since he was VP.
That makes total sense.
So this abrupt middle of the week trip on a Tuesday, they're like in between the holidays. On Tuesday, he's going to the
Right.
Virgin Islands to get out of here.
Yeah,
So-
and Biden has a history of firing international politicians that he doesn't like or investigators that don't do what he wants them to do, as he openly bragged on the Council on Foreign Relations with Richard Haas about how he was able to fire a Ukrainian prosecutor that was looking into the business that his son was getting lucrative contracts from. Also,
it was on the board of.
Yeah, and getting a lot of contracts, getting a lot of money, getting I think it was $50,000, $83,000 a month,
$1 million a year.
and the DOJ still has a lot of those documents surrounding his contracts, all the money, all the paychecks, all the gifts that he was getting from Russia, from China, from Ukraine. They're not really releasing any of that information. And for Joe Biden to go to the Virgin Islands that are looking for a federal bailout, and 3 days after announcing this lawsuit in the Virgin Islands, this attorney general gets fired without cause, without reason. The attorney general that was looking after J.P. Morgan and Chase and their involvement in this larger trafficking and extortion operation, give me a break. How more obvious could it get? This attorney general was a hero. She was putting everything on the line, investigating and calling out the bigger players and the bigger names when it came to the biggest banks finagling and running an international child trafficking operation that, of course, affected people in so many negative ways. Thousands of children hurt, and we're never going to get any justice here because the people who are looking into this are being fired immediately.
Imagine going back in time, like 2016, and telling your past self about that story. Yeah. Like you're just sitting there with sunglasses on, you got a cigar, and you're like, hey, younger Tim, child sex trafficking rings on private islands with powerful global elites and politicians is real. You might as well just go here's what you want to do. Here's what you got to do. You got to go back in time, tell your younger self, get a jar, a big one, a big like flour jar, or empty it out, and then take a piece of paper, write Alex Jones was right, tape it to the front, put the lid on top, cut a hole through it,
put some money in it.
Start putting money in it now. You'll trust me, because you get in front of the interest. You know, then when Alex comes to collect, you know, you'll have paid up in advance.
If I would have told myself this 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, obviously, dumb. So I'm talking about it right now because I was. And,
so you were
Alex
red-pilled
Jones
day
was.
one.
And,
you were red-pilled
I mean,
from...
I've
It's
been,
like
I've been looking
imagine
into this for a while.
Imagine there's a guy walking around with like a trench coat on and like a boot on his head and like tin foil in his hands, and he's yelling about this, and then it turns out he's right.
Right. Who is that guy? That's what's that guy's name? He runs for president every so often.
Well, the boot on his head is Vermin Supreme.
Yeah, Vermin Supreme. What's up, Vermin?
Guy?
Luke, were you red-pilled before 9/11?
No, after.
But that was a
9/11.
big one. That was a huge one.
How long after?
A few years. Obviously, around the war in Iraq time, I remember still going out to my first protest against the Iraq war before it even started. And I was still very young then, but I was reading a lot of different books. Behold the Pale Horse was one of the books that I was reading when I was like 14, 15. And
who was at these events? Because now that I've been to similar ones in modern time, essentially, like to me, that almost seems like I feel like I was late. Were there Republicans at these events, like people that voted for Bush, maybe, or no?
Well, right after 9/11, the Republican Party had control of everything. Had the seat at the table. They were in charge,
right?
And they were able to galvanize a huge amount of power and authority for themselves. And then they ended up bankrupting this country and starting foreign wars and destroying people's personal liberties.
And the Republicans show up.
And I think this is why the woke culture is so prevalent today, because there was such a big pushback, as you were describing, to the Bush years, which were absolutely horrible, when the Republicans had control of every institution, had the nation saying, just tell us what to do, we'll follow your orders, let's roll.
Right.
They were cheering them on. They screwed this country over. They screwed their people over, and the national security state that was built to fight terrorism is being turned around and being used against those same kind of Republicans that dared to speak up. So what happened with the Bush years was absolutely mind-boggling. It was absolutely crazy. And of course, the right-wing media then attacked us. And then Barack Obama came into power, and then the left-wing media attacked us. Because it's about being open-minded. It's about being critical of any kind of power and anyone in the establishment, no matter what.
Is that picture of Kevin McCarthy with the Ukraine pin real?
I think he had. I think there's a photo of him with the pin and then the flag inside.
Yeah, Phil
of
Labonte posted the picture.
What
who knows what's true these days? Because there's a lot of disinformation or propaganda everywhere. A lot Photoshop is very
Did you think that the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was real when you heard it?
No. There was a UN weapon inspector that came out and was screaming, "No, there are no weapons of mass destruction. This is a lie." The New York Times was again given fake information by the intelligence agencies and then reported absolutely they have weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, other people were saying that it's very unlikely that they do, and if they have anything, it's probably the weapons that we gave them in order to fight Iran when Iran and Iraq were fighting together, and the United States was backing both sides and giving them weapons in order for them to kind of take each other out.
What happened between 9/11 and then, like 2003, that made you become critical of it? Because I was still in it. I was still in the matrix in that point.
Well, I grew up in New York City. I saw the police state kind of be built up. I was affected by the police state, and seeing it all around me, and then seeing the larger kind of discussion, seeing people be tortured, seeing people be, seeing those photos from Guantanamo Bay, that has an impact on you.
And then when Alex Jones crept up behind Luke with a red pill and grabbed him by the hair and then put it in his mouth.
I like when he does that.
I remember me and my
Luke's
friends.
eyes glow.
Yeah, they're still glowing.
Back then, to get a video, you needed to be on the dial-up computer, right? You needed to be on torrents, and you would slowly download a video for 2 to 3 days, sometimes even longer, and you would torrent the video, and then you would finally open it. You never knew what you were getting. There wasn't any thumbnail, right? People, and then many times what we used to do
Burn
is
CDs.
we used to, no. We used to upload torrents of all the movies that came out. So the original Matrix came out, and instead of putting the Matrix, we put 9/11 Road to Tyranny, which was Alex Jones's first documentary.
Wow.
And then people would download all the torrents and upload it automatically. Yep. This was way back in the day. And I remember the first time being a young teenager, going to my friend's apartment. He took all week, downloaded an Alex Jones documentary. We were watching it. We heard police cars outside, and we were like, they're coming for us. Oh no. Because of the paranoia and the fear mongering that was around them actually, impacted us in such a way. But at the end of the day, he released so much important information that no one else was talking about, that this was the underground of the underground. And people were watching these videos because people were re-uploading the new latest movies. That's how they got my friend.
You would take one of these videos, put the Matrix title on it,
right,
and then people would click it when they opened up LimeWire.
You truly withdrawing people from the Matrix. I mean, that's very a double entendre.
Whatever movie came out, we made sure to re-upload the torrents.
Music was the same way. Music was the same. It was like Crank That Soldier Boy, and it was like, I did not have sexual relations with that boy. And I was like, I just trying to download Crank That Soldier Boy. And like, sheesh, I'm 8 years old. I'm like, who is this?
Piracy, you wouldn't download a car, would you? That's right. Isn't it kind of funny how piracy's just gone?
Yeah.
Like the market solved that problem.
Correct, right.
Now you just pay $8 a month or whatever.
It was easier than downloading, unzipping, plugging your phone in, whatever the
Getting
music
viruses.
It'd be a 3 megabyte.
You never
MP3.
knew what you were getting.
It would take like 12 hours to get a 3 megabyte. I'd do it at 6
So it's like,
PM
I'm going to pay $4 or $5, and I guess I'd rather pay and know what I'm getting than not pay and not know what I'm
Yeah,
getting.
you download a song and it would be like, you're trying to download Nickelback, but you end up with some weird random band.
I used to download.
All the kids love Nickelback.
I would download games. I was torrenting games where I got Crusader Kings 2, and then I liked it so much that I ended up buying it because I love the developers.
Right.
Paradox,
Perfect
you
example.
guys deserved it. Then I bought a second copy
There's
because I
an
love them
perfect
so
example,
much.
right? You steal it.
And
I'm willing to pay.
If I never
you're a
torrented
weird
it,
guy.
I wouldn't have known that it was
Correct.
awesome, and I wouldn't have bought
Exactly.
2 copies. So.
Exactly.
I don't, and then everyone clapped. I don't believe it.
I bought it for my friends. I bought the
All right,
game
that-
for
that
my
I
friends.
could- that I
because
could
if you
believe.
have expansions, then your friends can play multiplayer and they get to use your expansions. It's such a good sales tool for a game.
I remember those LimeWire days. It was so exciting because
yeah.
like you never knew what you were getting.
No.
you
You
never
like
knew.
that? You enjoyed that?
Yeah. Which virus are you getting this time?
It was interesting because it was a way of people being able to kind of communicate with each other, share videos, share photos, and then it wasn't like there was 720 or 4K. People are spoiled today. People
Right.
are absolutely
Yeah, for
spoiled. But you were able to find things like Alex Jones accidentally, things like William Cooper's broadcast accidentally, and there was I forgot who else was there was a couple other OGs out there that were releasing videos and documentaries that were archaic, that were done through public access television, that were pretty revolutionary. And Alex Jones, say what you may about him, but he was he blazed the path forward when it came to independent media, when it came to critical thinking, and he was one of the first people to say, hey, I don't need the corporate media. I don't need to be approved. I don't need multi-millions of dollars. I'm going to show up at this local broadcasting station and I'm going to do things on my own and release it to the general public. And it went viral. So truly give him credit because he was one of the first independent content creators that actually was able to be successful with all of this. And then, of course, came Loose Change and everyone pirated that. And that was its biggest strength. That's how it became so popular, because of that kind of virality, because of that kind of need, because of that thirst for knowledge and hunger. And it was like you could get anything and everything online, but also you get a whole bunch of surprises. So it was a Wild West back in the day, and it was way better than what it is now.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.